the first vehicle we equipped with glass was 1699. For example, you don't get an HUD in any sports car because the windshield inclination is too much. Are promised for a very, very long time, these smart glasses. To be honest, who wants to drive with a ski goggle projecting with a laser directly into your eye to create an image directly within your eye?
Hey, coming at you from the Motor Valley of Europe, Stuttgart, Germany. This is the Screens Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Sigers. I am joined today by our expert, Shrivas.
Hello.
Just one name, no last name.
Like Madonna.
Like Madonna. We have a good one for you today. Now look, every time we interact with intuitive HMI or gaze upon an automotive display, it's easy to overlook the intricate hardware that powers them. But without it, our experiences would be far from seamless. I feel we should all take a moment to appreciate the unsung heroes who work tirelessly behind the scenes, who are constantly innovating, and whose craftsmanship ensures that we can effortlessly connect with the digital world that surrounds us. My guest today is Stefan Hertel from I'm going to say it wrong already, Saint-Gobain Sekurit, the head of HMI and UX. Mr. Hertel, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So right off the bat, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Saint-Gobain Sekurit?
Yes, so I'm at Saint-Gobain Research Germany, which is the research facility of Saint-Gobain Sekurit in Germany, and I had the team of HMI and user experience experts here in Hasyin, which is close to Aachen, close to the border of Netherlands and Belgium. And with my team, I work mainly on integrating HMIs and integrating functionalities into the automotive glazing. And in addition to that, we also look into other areas, which is not part of today's discussion, because we also look into construction materials and glazing for buildings. So there's a connection from architecture to cars, but today we speak about HMIs and HUD systems.
That's such a cool topic too. I mean, the automotive glazing and the HMI. I mean, what I read off your website is basically that Saint-Gobain Sekurit has been in the market for over 90 years, playing a key role in shaping the evolution of automotive glazing. So right off the bat, I think I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the impact of glass-based hardware on the design of different components like HMIs and HUDs, et cetera?
Yeah. So you're right that Sekurit is already 90 years in the business, or over 90 years. If you look at Saint-Gobain, we are even longer in the business because the first vehicle we equipped with glass was 1699.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a little bit longer than 90 years. And it was a sedan chair of the architect of King Louis XVI.
That's fascinating.
So that's the tradition of my company. So it goes way back, and this also shows our connection to glazing. Of course, from the sedan chair to today's automotive is a long way, and today we integrate HUD systems into glazing, today also the glazing surface of a car evolves to, and it's a huge surface of glass, and we have a huge potential there to integrate additional functionalities, additional HMIs, also not only for the driver, also for passengers. I mean, we might speak later on also about augmented reality. We can go into details there. And glazing also takes a big part in shielding the passengers from the outside. Is it the environment? Is it sun? Is it radiation? And so we also have a big part in changing climate situations. And and glass, of course, it's just at the border between the interior and the exterior. So we are able to build the bridge from the interior to the outside world.
Very cool.
Nice. I have a couple of questions for you then. So let's start by looking at the big picture. So for the average person listening to this podcast, the first question that probably comes to mind is you're speaking HMI user experience. I assume this is digital products. You're speaking about glass that makes how's that possible? So Mr. Hertel, could you tell us a little bit more about what the role of glass is when it comes to impacting, HMIs and user experience of people in the vehicle?
Yes. So for us, we have two separate things here. When we speak about the user experience, we speak about a holistic experience of the car itself. So the best HMI, the best digital HMI, is worth nothing if you're sitting in the car and are really uncomfortable. So what we do is we with our products shape create a comfortable interior. So we want to have visual comfort by a very bright and light interior. We have the thermal comfort. We where we manage the incoming radiation from the sun so that the car doesn't heat up that much, so that the AC system doesn't need to work that much. And on the third, we also have a big part in the acoustic comfort, so shielding the interior from the road noise and so on. So all of that is part of the glazing, is part of the user experience. When you drive down a nice road, you wanna feel the road. Of course, you wanna drive the car, but on the other side, you wanna also be shielded from the outside. Yeah. And on the other side, we also integrate information displays into the glass. So what we today don't do is, for example, the cover glass on displays, but we extend the glass surface by the means of showing information, and the HUD system is the best example for that. So we present the information right where it belongs, in the front of the eyes of the driver, so that you don't need to look down. And this is, of course, has a big impact on the experience while driving as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always think of when I think of a heads-up display, I always think of Iron Man, because that was the first time I was really just like, and I think it'd be really cool driving a car to have all that stuff. But I mean, I still, when you bring up augmented reality, that seems like just something that is huge for the future of this, right?
I mean, Tom and I had a chance to test some really cool cars. We drove the EQS, we drove the BMW i7, iX, and all of these vehicles came equipped with augmented reality. Of course, we go into this a little deeper later on. But then my next question would be to you, when coming up with these new technologies, right? Like when we speak about augmented reality, heads-up displays, windshield displays, what is the collaboration process between yourself and an OEM? How does this go about? Because I can imagine that the OEM probably comes up with really cool ideas. Oh, we want to do this, and then you have a big list of requirements on your table. Or does it go the other way around, where you're saying that, oh, we have this new glass that can do this, and the OEM is running around thinking, oh no, what can we do with this? How can we use this?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it definitely goes both ways. So we collaborate with our partners, with the OEMs in both ways. So on some you have also some of the, let's say, standard projects where the OEM comes with the need of a normal HUD system. and he gives us the specifications, and we try to match that specifications as close as possible. And then you have the really exciting projects where you need to integrate an HUD in a car where it is just not fit in, and this is where our expertise comes in, because HUD systems, they have really narrow bands of specifications where it really actually looks good. And for example, you don't get an HUD in any sports car because the windshield inclination is too much, or the curvature of the windshield is too narrow, so that we can't guarantee a high quality image in the HUD. But here then our experts come into play, and they design together with the OEM the windshield curvature in the area of the HUD, or we also go into the collaboration not only with the OEM but also with the projector supplier. So there are a couple of good projector suppliers out there, and in the end, it's a system. It's a system out of the projector supplier, the windshield, the dashboard, where it is mounted, and all needs to fit together. And on top of that, you also have the software, because in the end, you cannot show everything on an HUD system, but you need to prepare the content you want to show for the use in a transparent screen. In the end, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you put it that way, I really did not realize this, because many times I was wondering, okay, why does the HUD on this, why is it better on some cars than the other? Obviously, there are other factors, and why some cars don't have HUDs altogether.
Yeah.
Now I realize it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get into I know we keep saying we're going to talk about augmented reality here in a minute, and we'll bring it up. Forget it. No, let's just do it right now. Like, why wait? I mean, what are some of the key specs that you always have to take into? Like, you talk about the heads-up displays. What are some of the key specifications you have to take into account when you're creating like augmented reality tech? Is it similar?
Yes, when we speak about the windshield, yes, augmented reality has some additional topics you need to take care about in the full system again. But when you speak only about the glass, the requirements on AR HUDs are quite similar to the ones in HUD in standard HUD systems. They're a little bit tighter. They're a little bit harder to really produce, because in the end, no windshield is exactly the same as the other. If you look at the process, how windshields are made, in the end, how glass is bent to shape, then you see this is a process which we can control very much today. But there are still variances in there. So in the end, to produce a windshield, you take flat glass, which is flat 2D glass, and you bend that into shape by heating up and letting basically the gravity do its job. So you heat up the center area of the windshield, and the glass flows into that curved shape of the desired windshield. And you can imagine a degree here or a degree there changes the shape of the windshield completely. And our experts here at the plant, they have this under control, but only to a certain extent. And this is the where the quality aspect comes into play. We control these quality parameters very much, so that every windshield is in a really tight tolerances. And for AR HUDs, these tolerances are really small. And in the end, what we have is we have a 100% inspection of each windshield, which leaves our lines, and we managed to create really high quality windshields for AR HUDs.
That is really cool. Sorry, go on.
What we need to take care of is the geometrical parameters, like the radii, right, like the thickness of the glass, things like that. And then, of course, we also need to take care about the quality of the reflection of the image, because windshields are two layers of glass, not only one. And when you do your benchmarking of your HUDs, you might have seen something like a double image, or what we call ghost image. And that's because we have two layers of glass, and so you get two reflections of the same image on the surface of the glass. And the art in there is to overlay these two images so it looks like one image.
Interesting.
Because you can't avoid the second reflection.
Yeah, there's so many. Have you noticed any of that stuff in any of the cars that you've been in?
Yes, of course.
Of course.
I mean, this whole conversation is just a big long conversation of, oh wow, I didn't realize that for me, because it is so underestimated. Because I can even bring up some examples. We drove the ID3, which is a cheap car in comparison to something like an EQS Mercedes. But which had such a good augmented reality navigation. It was unbelievable. And maybe one more question I have in follow-up to this, which may not directly be related to you, but I think it kind of matches up. We've observed that, in some vehicles, no matter where we are sitting, we just cannot see the HUD or the AR. And this was, I think, it brings to my mind the smart #1 that Tom and I took for a test.
Oh, the Brabus one.
The Brabus one.
Yeah.
And Tom was so tall, he just could not see the HUD at all.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see that, they've actually got a great Experts in Cars episode on YouTube where they go over the entire thing. It's fantastic. So check us out on YouTube.
And we also complain about this part.
And they also complain about that on YouTube. Yes.
Yes. So my question to you then is, how do you dictate the specifications of this? I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer myself. I can clearly see what you mean by tolerances and radii of curvature and so on. But how do you really dictate the specifications to match versatility of heights, drivers of all heights? Because in my view, the smart #1 has failed a little bit because the tall person can't see it.
Yeah. So I may not, or I should not say that I was part of the team back in my last job before Saint-Gobain. Before I started with HUDs, I worked with the Geely team who designed the smart. I haven't worked on the HUD, I need to say.
Okay.
That's a breath of relief for me.
But yeah, what is or what you did experience there is basically a human factor thing. The team designed the so-called iBox. This is the box in the car where you can position your head in and still see the HUD system in too short or too narrow tolerances. And I mean, if you look at the HMI design, or especially also the human factors part in that, you have cultural differences, and you need to decide: do you define this for a tall European guy with the 95 percentile of I'm not really sure where that is currently, but somewhere around 1.78 or something like that, or you focus more on the Chinese people, a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller in the car, sitting in the car, and you need to decide who do you focus on. Normally, every car should have a height adjustment of the HUD, but also this has its boundaries. I mean, you can't fit to all. Yes. And this is this is really a challenge for all of us to make the iBox as big as possible to fit the needs of all the drivers.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to decide whether to fit the one market or the other market. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't have too many variants in the cars delivered by your company into the world.
And then there's people like me who are tall but have terrible posture. So I just kind of slump down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it brings to mind another very interesting question, at least to me. How is it that some vehicles, probably I can name, let's say a similar car like the smart #1, the Volkswagen ID3. When I sit in the car, I'm up close, a little closer to the wheel. I'm a little more upright. When Tom sits in the car, he's 6'3", 6'4", so I feel like the steering wheel is in a different car altogether from his seat position. So it's just so far away. But in both our seat positions and both our height adjustments, we are able to see this HUD and this iBox. So where I'm sitting right now, it looks to me like some vehicles, and I don't intend to point fingers at just these two companies, but some vehicles have gotten this really right, and they've made it for a larger demographic of people, while some haven't. So what really influences this this kind of decision making? How is it that some do this but some don't? It's again probably a much more broader question, but it really comes to my mind at this point in time.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to experience the smart HUD system yet. I'll have a look at this after our talk, definitely. And yeah, in the end, there is a lot of expertise needed to design systems like that. And there are companies out there doing HUDs for a really long time. I think the first was in a BMW 7 Series already decades ago. Of course, there were a different level back then. It was a really small HUD system. But yeah, they learned a lot through the last years. And, also the automotive industry, especially in Germany, the people move around between the different OEMs, and they take with them their expertise. The Chinese companies, they catch up, but they start at a different level. Not saying that every car designed in China has a worse HUD than German, but it really needs a lot of expertise. It really needs a lot of knowledge about the systems to really design it well, and design it also for a bigger portion of the demographics. Yeah.
Looks like there's a big factor of experience there. And just to touch on the augmented reality, come back there a little bit, I would like to ask you your opinion on what the scope of augmented reality in cars is. At this point in time, I see augmented reality navigation. I find it very useful because when I'm driving, I hear, take left in 400 meters. I'm not measuring it manually, so I don't know exactly how far I need to go for 400 meters. But when I see the AR navigation exactly pointing which street I need to turn into, it's just so useful. Do you personally see other scope, other applications of augmented reality in heads-up displays?
Yeah. So you pointed already at the primary use of AR, of really contact analog AR, because there are also different kinds of AR system out there. And what you experience, for example, in the EQS, this is really contact analog. That means the information is right at the object in the real world where it belongs to. So in your case, the street you need to turn into, and this is the strong suit of AR and adding information to the real world. And navigation is the first use case you always come across. Then a lot of cars today also show ADAS system statuses in in real life. So you see the distance to the car in front of you. You see if you keep a safe distance or you're close by coloring that status. And these are the two use cases basically done in any AR system out there currently. And yeah, but AR can do much more than that. But on the other side, adding information is also distraction, of course. When you think about and when you look into sci-fi movies of any kind, using AR technology, I mean, you mentioned Iron Man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you want to have all this information while driving with 150 on the autobahn
I
or
may be
something
a
like
bit
that.
distracted, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, but this shows also, I mean, the sci-fi movies, they show also what can be done in AR. And if you think about autonomous driving or AR for passengers, and when autonomous drive will happen, or if it happens, then we are all passengers, and we can use that technology for other things, and then it really starts the game. So it's then in information based on the location. So there's a restaurant with that and that reviews. You want to book a table in there, or any other kind of advertisements, enhancing the reality. So why not blend in spaceships in the sky if you like things like that?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of use cases, but we need to be very, very careful what kind of information we show to the driver, because in the end we need to reduce distraction as much as possible and keep the driver really with their attention on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had guests on that talk about similar things. And I think, what did we bring up last time? We were speaking with somebody about PlayStation 5s in cars right now. And it's, do you really want to be playing a PS5 while I mean, it's not that I would be while I'm driving, but I think they're a good solution maybe if you have kids, your kids are playing PS5, but it would also really tempt me to grab the controller and just like, let me beat this guy for you real quick. Like it doesn't,
Yeah.
Yeah, but you bring up a very interesting point about passengers and augmented reality for passengers. So let's expand the view, if you see what I mean.
I see what you did there. Yeah, very nice.
Let's talk about windshield displays.
Okay.
Now, during my studies, I've been a participant in a fair few studies on windshield displays. I myself wanted to do some research on this field, so I've done a little bit of reading there. But as the point of view where I come from, everything is a concept, So you are in the battleground. So please tell us a little bit more. What are the possibilities of creating a windshield display? I mean, until today, I really didn't know there were so many factors to create an HUD, let alone project something on the screen. So is it possible really to create a full windshield display? What do you think?
I'm convinced that we have something like a windshield display. It might look different than we imagine that today. So what we see is that there are technologies emerging which could give us the possibility, which could give us tools in our hands to add information wherever we want to have that. We all followed the reveal of Apple Vision Pro.
Yes.
And a technology like that could do something like a windshield display. So you have some markers on your display on your windshield, and that's where you look at. And in that case, you can add any information on top of reality. That is one possibility, but to be honest, who wants to drive with a ski goggle down any road, or you want to not put that on every time you go into your car?
Yeah.
But still, it's interesting. It still is a start of of a new kind of technology. I mean, we already are promised for a very, very long time these smart glasses, goggles, and so on.
Yeah.
There are even technologies out there projecting with a laser directly into your eye. So to create an image directly within your eye, not having a display at all. This could be also a way to get closer to a windshield display. But also there, I would be very, very cautious to try out that technology. To be very be frank, there.
I'll let somebody else figure that out. I won't be one of the first. So, no, I'm not an early adopter of laser.
And maybe also not the second.
So, what are the applications do you think you could have with the windshield? I mean, do you just like full on maybe navigation or maybe a TV screen for the passenger? Or like what kind of applications can you see happening?
Yes. So I want to point out one thing before we close that, because when we go into the windshield, when we go into the glass, there's one technology out there which is really promising to give us a bigger screen on the windshield. Maybe not the full windshield, but bigger screens, bigger possibilities. And this is holographic films. So with holography, we can go around some of the shortcomings of today's projectors. You always need a big field of. You want to have a big field of view. You want to have big eye boxes, and that increases the size of today's HUD projectors. With holography, you can shrink that down and still have it with big field of view. And there are a couple of nice concepts out there already, and this could give us get us a step closer to a full windshield HUD.
Yeah.
And coming back to your question, once we have that, I mean, for passengers, entertainment, of course, is one of the great possibilities of the windshield as a display. Entertainment like gaming, you mentioned the PS5 before. Maybe not while driving, maybe not for the driver, but again, autonomous cars are promised to us, and you have the charging stops of electric vehicles where you could use the windshield as a gaming platform, as a video screen, or you can even think about doing video calls, doing office stuff on there, showing presentations to the interior of the car. That all is a possibility of this windshield display technologies. And you could even think about another really nice technology we have here, and this is switchable glazing. So glass does not need to be transparent all the time. So if you experience the iX from BMW, you might have seen that. You have a switchable glass roof in that car.
So cool. That's such a cool thing.
Yeah, and you can imagine that also for the windshield. So you can encapsulate your space. You can create this third living space for yourself. You know that nobody from outside can look inside, and then you can use that surface for a big display for, again, movies, games, office spaces.
Yeah, it seems really cool, the applications if we ever get to like a level 5 automation, which, people are skeptical about if we ever get to that. But still, there's applications that I didn't think about. Like, for example, electric vehicles. At some point you're charging your vehicle. What do you do while you're charging it? Maybe you can just sit inside, play some games. I don't know. What I worry about the most with that, though, is honestly the advertisements that'll probably eventually happen no matter what. Like, I always think of Back to the Future. I think it's Back to the Future 2 or something like that, whenever you have the giant Jaws shark come at him like the holograph. And then I'm just like, okay, that would be terrible if I'm driving down the road and my windshield suddenly gives me an advertisement for Jaws 5 or something like that.
That I can imagine the dread behind that.
Yeah.
But I think you really read my mind here, because switchable glazing was one of my put up upcoming questions.
That's
you know,
cool. That's
yeah,
so cool.
because it's unbelievable, this kind of technology. If you showed like childhood me this thing and you said you could do this, I wouldn't believe you. It's super underrated. But before we go into that aspect, I have a few more questions to touch on with windshield displays. You mentioned holographic projections, and this makes it really interesting because I've seen some really cool examples in movies, which you also mentioned earlier. Like I think it was Ocean's 11, 12, 13, one of the three
One of
where
those
they
5 million.
project that egg, right? So do you think that there could also be more constructive applications of such holographic technology? And I can think of something like pointing out dangerous vehicles on the road, or some other driving related applications of holographic technology. Because as you mentioned, the projector is a little limited, but I feel like holography opens the door a little bit more.
Yeah. And you already mentioned a good use case for that. When you have holographic projectors, you are not bound to one projector plane.
Mm-hmm.
So you could even position your HMI into the real world, also in a short distance, in a long distance, and so you can mark, of course, obstacles on the road, other vehicles, the dangers, right or left. I have a little bit of a fear there, because when you take any driver's training, one of the first things you learn is the car will go where you look.
True.
So, and we tend today to mark the objects which are dangerous for us. So we draw the attention to the car in front of us, and that is for me a problem of today's AR systems, because this is the easiest way to mark. Okay, here's the danger, there's the danger. Be careful about that. Be careful about that. But what, in my opinion, we should do is draw the attention to the way around. So this is also where it comes what I mentioned before. We need to learn to design HMIs for the technology. What we do today for HUD systems is we reduce the information, show only the most important things, because it's really hard for us to digest the additional layer of information. And when it comes to AR, we need to do the same. But there is a lot of research necessary. We need to go get into touch with users, with the car drivers, what they actually need in that situations. And we are just at the beginning of that. We don't understand all of that. So what I just told you is my feeling about that, but there is no research behind that yet. And I would love to do that kind of research. I mean, you said you have been to Eindhoven before.
Yeah.
I think there the research in that direction also happens.
Yes, I mean, I like I said earlier as well, I was a part of, I participated in a few of these studies with a lot of these interesting concepts. I saw some really wild concepts, so that's a bit, I think, next step for us. But based on what you just said, I have a human factors question to ask you. So when you look at AR, right, let's look at AR-based navigation. One thing that I observed is, while Tom and I have been driving Tom a lot more than me, but we've been driving for upwards of 10 years, And in this case, we are very trained, very used to, like, okay, if it says make a left here, you focus on the road, not on the AR. But this could not be the case with every person. There could be someone who's so, I don't know, fascinated or distracted by this that they're looking only at the arrow. On the other hand, you have contemporary systems, what most people use today on their Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which is voice-based navigation. And I read this very interesting study that said that voice-based guidance and voice assistants distract just as much as visual cues. So between the two, what is the lesser of the two evils that could really help us make our daily life
That's
or
also
daily
assuming
commute?
that they're evils, though.
I mean, if they're both going to distract you in some way, of course I say it in humor, but in your view, what's the lesser of the two evils, wherein you see the potential for lesser distraction?
Yeah. So I can only speak for myself.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm not an expert. I did not do the research, but in my opinion, you could, of course, if you need to decide between visual and auditive, it depends on how good the auditive navigation is.
Mm-hmm.
If it just says to you, take a right turn in 200 meters, then it might not work as well, or it might not be better than showing 200 meters.
Yeah.
If it says take a right turn after the traffic light where McDonald's is on the corner, it gets more into a more natural interaction, and I could imagine that this is a little bit less distracting than a visual cues. When we go back to AR, again, we are the start of AR. There is not much experience with that kind of technology as a road user or for your road users, and so I'm not sure. I can't tell you what is the better way to do that.
Yeah, we don't know which one's less evil. But I will tell you this, I kind of like the idea of a combination, maybe. For me personally, like if I hear take a left in 200 meters and then on my, windshield, it's kind of pointing maybe a countdown of some sort, maybe it kind of, hey, there you go, starts blinking right before the turn. The combination of the audio and visual, I think might be.
Multimodal.
Yes, multimodal.
Yeah.
You know all the good words. Like evil.
Yeah, but then before we move into more, let's say, fantasy topics, probably one question to you is, we spoke about driver distraction, but do you see any other potential dangers and risks in having windshield displays and augmented reality tech?
Yes. There's also fatigue of the eye. All the technologies we use today, they are not perfect. There's fatigue to just by the perception of the eye, because you need to focus on different systems, on different things. A display still today it flickers. I mean, it flickers with maybe 120 hertz, but it still flickers. So it will strain your eye, definitely. So if you have a really long drive with an HUD system, you start to also realize that, especially also if you turn your head. I mean, in the corner of the eye, you're a little bit more sensitive to flickering than right in front of you. This is also where human factors come in. Then, of course, you start to focus too much on the AR stuff, and not recognizing the dangers on the road. You might rely too much on the information presented to you, and if the system has missed something, you might not see that. That's definitely also a danger for us.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I think it's similar to autonomous driving, where you've got these risks of people trusting, the actual drivers trusting the autonomous system or the ADAS system like more than they probably should. And I think for these displays, then maybe that's a factor that you always have to consider is we display the information that is only necessary. We don't want to get, we have to work with the trust of the driver to actually,
Yep.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah. So what about passenger window displays? I mean, we're talking about, the full windshield and all of that. Did you do any research or any kind of production on, can we convert a passenger window into display, or maybe the side?
Yeah. Of course, we also looked at that. As said, we look at all glazings around the car to add functionality to that. Passenger windows have the problem they are not easy to integrate a display into because they are ergonomically not in the ideal position.
Yeah.
So you don't want to turn your head all the time to look at an information. Passengers also have the freedom to use their phone. We should not underestimate that. I mean,
True.
to compete with a smartphone is really hard for any kind of systems in the, especially for passengers. So you need to create something which gives additional value, and the additional value is for me when it comes to AR, because that can't be done with the smartphone to the same extent. So a really immersive AR system. And but the technologies to bring a display into the side light is quite the same. It's either it's a projective system, so you have a projector and some kind of reflection on the glass surface, or you bring the screens directly into the glass. We haven't talked about that yet, but when it comes to OLED displays, you can already buy transparent OLED displays, mainly for advertisement purposes. But yeah, these are also see-through displays, and could be a way to solve that. But in the end, it's really hard to get use cases which actually can compete with the smartphone and convince the buyers of the car to spend some extra money instead of buying a new phone.
Yeah, true. That is true.
Yeah. But I can think of a few applications. It takes me back to my childhood because I was a really restless child. And I would have absolutely have loved to have something to fiddle with on the window, because most of the time I was staring out of it. Now we have a smartphone. At that time we didn't. But I was a part of this other research that went on at the university. One of my colleagues, Aditya, he worked on it. And he had this really cool concept of using passenger windows as a kind of a tour guide, So when you're going through Paris, for example, you're sitting in the back seat and then you see, you know what the Eiffel Tower is, but you see something else, maybe the catacombs, the entrance to it, and then the window really has like a projection saying, oh, this is the catacombs, it was built in this time, blah, blah, blah. And then you're able to immediately see, maybe you want to switch to your phone at that point in time, but you're able to see what that is and you don't miss it.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a very viable application, and there are similar applications like this in terms of keeping passengers informed and or entertained?
Yes. So we of course also looked at similar applications. The tour guide is a widely known application for a side light display. What we see is when we speak to users, they are not that convinced about this application. You name that, you have the smartphone. If you want to read something about these catacombs or that building, then you tend to pull out your smartphone and read about it, because that is much easier than on a transparent screen.
True.
And so there is really a hard barrier for market entrance for this kind of systems, because there are not many viable use cases. In my point of view, that's my personal point of view.
Yeah. I mean, how often are you going to use that? The truth is hey, sometimes you're driving in a place where you want that information displayed, possibly, but most people are driving in the city, maybe, you know what I mean? Or they're driving out in the country and it's,
That's true. I mean, most people would use their car for commute.
Yeah, but I will say this, it sounds better than if you're driving than to look at your phone and to just be doing that. So
true.
Yeah. But there might be other use cases. So if we extend our view a little bit, I mean, say also there's transportation. So that means we also produce windows for trains, for buses, and so on. And there, I mean, you said that before. You're afraid of the advertisements, but this is also a great market. I mean,
True.
these are surfaces which we can bring advertisements to, and especially for trains, for commuter trains, this can be done also location-based. And you look out of the window and you see, okay, this restaurant has this or this offer for you.
Oh, that would be a good application. But for a minute there, I was picturing that I'm taking a cheap Flixbus down to some different city, and then I wake up in the middle of the night because this purple light projecting from the window onto my
wake
face.
Up.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be afraid of the advertisements, but they're coming no matter what.
Yeah. You can always pay extra and switch that off.
There you go. Yeah, you have to get the.
You're giving them ideas now.
Sorry about that.
I mean, jokes apart, that was arguably my next question, but you've already answered it. But since we are speaking about glass, this was another question of mine. Recently, I watched another video of this switchable glass. Of course, we experienced it in the vehicles as well. But it's really cool how you can just, with a click of a button, tint it, and then you don't have a tint anymore. And my question is, why do we not already see this on cars, in the rear windows at least? Because I think that would be the best way to, rather than pulling up an irritating piece of cloth that makes some sounds when you go over bad roads. I would love to just press a button and poof, my windows tinted already. Why don't we see these in cars today?
So what you already see in cars, as you said, are the rooftops.
Yes.
And the rooftops are quite easy to or quite easy. They are also quite challenging to produce. You can because what actually is in there is nothing else than an LCD display, which switches from the one state to the other. So it's a liquid crystal. It's a film of liquid crystals, and this is in between two glasses. So it's the same technology as in the windshield. So you have an inner glass and an outer glass, and in between there's this functional film, switchable film. And when you look at side lights today, most of the cars, so nearly every car has single glass side lights. And that's where the additional costs for the OEM also comes in, because you need to switch to have this functionality. You need to go to a double layer glass, and then you need to also include that functional foil into that glass. And this is also a very cost-intensive product, and so it is. It's not that easy for OEMs to integrate that today, and also by a reasonable price point, and not just too much. I think, if I remember correctly, you can have something in a Rolls-Royce, something like that.
Possibly.
But I'm not sure about that.
That's not cost effective for me.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we after experiencing vehicles like the EQS, that's where I feel like these are the cars where you're paying like nearly 200K in money, where you can have these kind of applications. And I always like to think a little bit more optimistically, and I feel like once it comes into these cars, 5-10 years down the line, it trickles down into the cheaper cars, because every tech you see today in cheaper cars was probably the most daring innovation 10 years ago. Like you said, HUDs, it's there in a Volkswagen ID3 today, but way back you had to buy a BMW 7 Series, probably the fully spec'd out version, to get that technology. So do you think this is possible, that we see this come up in more expensive cars, and years down the line it trickles down and then it becomes more and more mass manufactured into smaller cars as well?
Yes.
This would be super
definitely.
useful.
So this kind of technology will trickle down in the portfolios of the OEMs. So you see, one of our glasses also goes into the new Renault. It was just released a couple of days ago that we will be the glass supplier for the new Renault
The Rafale? Yeah.
Rafale, yeah.
French
And
names.
so we will supply the glass roof in that. There's also a PDLC, so a switchable glass roof. And there you already see it's still a quite expensive car, not as expensive as the EQS, but you see that also the more affordable OEMs use the same kind of technology, and that will go trickle down in the model portfolio as well, and also to different applications like the side lights or like the rear window of the car.
Yeah, I think it makes for, I mean, besides, of course, opening it for ventilation, it makes for a great application for roof and sunroofs, because, for example, I come from India, and in India, it's really hot in the summers. Where we live, it's 42, 43 degrees. And when you have sunroof, the biggest problem is that no matter how much insulation you put on it and the curtain below it, the car tends to get really hot if you park it outside, even more than when you have a metal roof. And the other problem is that the sun tends to penetrate through the windows, obviously. And I'm 100% sure my parents would be very thankful if such a technology came into consumer cars as well. But finally, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I was just also confirming what you just said.
Yeah.
So whenever there is light, there's radiation. Radiation goes through glass, and this will heat up the interior. There are a lot of coatings also by Sekurit to reduce that, to a minimal extent, and you get even a better thermal comfort, or better or less heating up with the car with a glass roof today than with a metal roof. But all this on the high spec cars, and not on normal cars, of course. And also there it will trickle down. The switchable technology will help a little bit, but not that much, because in the end IR radiation is not filtered out by the switchable fold, but by other coatings and things in the glass.
And probably my last question then from my end to you would be, we spoke about so many innovative concepts, and finally we're speaking about passenger window displays. And when we look at passenger window displays, there's a lot of cool applications. But do you think this kind of technology will have a big impact on the user experience of passengers? You said that you had spoken to some, by you, I mean the researchers had spoken to some users and they were not so inclined towards it. One question would be, what would be the impact on user experience? And again, what are some of the potential risks and dangers of having such kind of passenger window displays as well?
I mean, let's start with the bad side, the dangers. For the, I mean, every display cause distraction, and even if it's only for the passenger, as you said, grab the controller and finish the boss level for your kid, even if you drive that currently. So this will always cause distraction. So we need to find ways around that. So maybe only put it on the rear row, or creating technologies around that it can't be seen from the driver's seat. But this is all going around the problem, but it will not solve completely, because any system in the car which is not driving related will distract in the end, and they all come with some dangers of distraction. But on the other side, it will have an impact for the passengers, of course. Entertainment in the cars will get more and more important, and creating surfaces to to have access to your kind of entertainment. This is the crucial thing for me. So in my opinion, it's not the right way to recreate entertainment platforms within cars, but to give access to the entertainment platforms. So why do you want to have a streaming service by an OEM if you already have a subscription to Netflix, or if you have already a subscription to any other entertainment platform? Is the same goes for gaming. We don't want to have you don't want to have your card games in the car when you're I don't know, a gamer who is normally on Steam, and you don't want to play Candy Crush in your car when you actually call at home to Call of Duty or things like that.
True. I was just thinking in my head, everything is fun in games until there's Counter-Strike or Dota on the system, and then,
that's not what he was thinking. You were thinking about playing Candy Crush. Be honest.
You got me there.
Yes. That's cool. Are there any cool projects that you've been working on lately that you're allowed to talk to us about?
Maybe some sneak peeks.
I'm sorry, I have to say no to that question. There are of course cool projects where we work on, but unfortunately not ready for publication yet.
Any that have been released already? There are recent ones that have been ready for publication,
but we haven't seen in cars already.
Yeah,
probably like somewhere between that. Okay, we've developed this and we've implemented it phase that we definitely would not know about.
Okay, so there are a couple of nice collaborations we did in the last, but they are not too much related to HMI. So what did we what has been done is what we see are really huge windshields. So windshields extending way beyond your head. So it gives a really, really nice open feeling in the car.
Yeah, so Tom can see out of them, actually. That's nice.
Yeah, so actually we get really, really close to the designer stream of having a glass dome on top of the car without any structures. We are getting there, not done yet fully, but so this is nice. So you can see that in Lucid Air, for example.
Yeah.
And then of course, what can I tell you is about the switchable projects. This is, as you said, or as already said, the Renault was the latest one. Our start project was the Porsche Taycan roof.
That comes to
also
mind.
A really nice one.
That's also going to be on screensauto.com. You can check that out.
But that was the first car Tom and I drove together, and we remember seeing this. And I was thinking there was another car with that switchable sunroof. What was that?
That's the one, and we have a full breakdown Experts in Cars episode on YouTube about that Porsche Taycan, and you can actually have that digital replica on screensauto.com. Sign up for your free trial. Got my plug-in today. It is amazing, though. It is an amazing thing.
But please go on.
Hey.
Sorry for the digression.
No, it's really good, and it's also I think this is also a very, very emotional project because the car is really also a nice drive.
True.
And the roof is just part of that. And but basically that's it. What I can tell you in addition to that is, of course, that we really work on AR HUDs. I can't reveal with whom we are working on that. We are working on integration of a new kind of display. I can't go in details there anymore.
Sure. You'll need to come back and come into details when you can, because that sounds awesome.
Yes. So maybe we talk after the IAA.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a potential next episode as well, but we are big fans of AR. So if you say let's talk AR, I'm ready to do a whole episode on AR.
Oh, he definitely is. I'm curious as to, we had a guest on here recently that talked about external HMIs, and I would imagine that some of the things you're working on probably collaborate with a lot of external HMI
Yes.
manufacturers.
I already waited for that because also from the external view, the glass surface is the most important thing to put information on, and there's also a lot of potential for external HMI when we have cars driving themselves, so autonomous cars. You need to also communicate to pedestrians, to other road users about the status of the car, and this can be done in the glass surface, because that's where actually there's also research done where pedestrians today look at, and this is the glass, this is the windshield, and so this is the natural choice to communicate to pedestrians. For example, is it safe to cross the street? Has the car seen me? So this is very, very good. And then, of course, when you look at the other screens, I hate to say that, but advertisement is a huge thing.
Hey.
Cars standing around are the perfect place to show advertisements.
So you just be walking down the street and just see ads on different cars as they're parked, kind of thing.
Yes.
I wonder if that would make my payment less.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
But you already see that today. I mean, if you jump into any taxi in China, nearly all of them, they have a projection on their rear window showing advertisements when they drive down the road, and they are so it is already there. It's nothing which is really new.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about blowing it up everywhere, just making it a huge thing.
Probably one more question that comes to my mind, just out of pure fascination. This study you spoke about, this topic you spoke about of where people look. I was an assistant on one of these studies where with an eye tracker, and that's actually very true. I can corroborate it. But my question is there some way in the world of glass to show these kind of projections for the external HMI on the windshields and windows in a way you can only see it from the outside but not the inside? Because I would imagine if there is some kind of, as my imagination goes, a projection, but the projector is probably putting some glare into my eye, if that makes sense.
Maybe.
Is there some way to do this?
Yeah. There are ways to do that. Yes. There are ways to control where the projection goes, so that you minimize the reflections and maximize the transmission through the glass. And what you do in the glass is a diffusion of the light of the projector, and then this goes to the outside. So there are possibilities. I mean, all this technology, they have their borders. So if you are directly in the reflection path of the projector, you will still see some glare. That's for sure. But you can design it in a way that you are not sitting in the direct reflection of the projector. So to hide the projector in a way that it really works out for you.
Wow. These are all fascinating things. I'm sorry. This is we get a lot of topics about HMI design, but integrating the glass and things like that into this, it's just fantastic. I mean,
I've still not gotten over polarized sunglasses, so this is just so cool.
It's weird. It's things that people don't normally think about. I think every day they're looking at their screens and not realizing, how much goes into that, but also the advancements you can make, and that it doesn't need to just be here. It could be here and here and here, and it could be everywhere. Like it's the future. It's very science fiction-y,
It is.
Yeah. And I think you're doing great work. I think that's it for today's episode. This has been fascinating. You definitely need to come back at some point and talk more about this. Like you said, he could talk about AR all day. Yeah. And I think it's a topic that people definitely want to get into. Stefan Hertel, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Screensauto.com. You can find your complete replica of an HMI. Podcast is going to be at Screens Podcast on all the platforms. You can also find us on YouTube at Screens and at the Screens Podcast. Once again, I'm Matt Sigers. This is Shrivas. We were joined today by Stefan Hertel from the head of HMI and UX at Saint-Gobain Sekurit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.